Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya dan salam kebajikan untuk kita semua, khususnya bagi para Tribuners dimanapun Anda berada. Nah, senang sekali rasanya pada hari ini Tribuners, saya Anissa Husnuzan dapat kembali menyapa Anda dalam Tribun VIP edisi spesial Sabtu 29 Juli 2023. Nah, dalam kurang lebih 30 hingga 40 menit ke depan para Tribuners, kita akan membahas informasi penting yang dimana pada Tribun VIP kali ini kita akan berbincang banyak tentang 1 tahun Perjanjian Laut Hitam, Ancaman Keamanan Pangan Global. Dan tentunya pada hari ini kita akan bersama dengan Kedutaan Besar Ukraina untuk Indonesia yang akan membahas lebih detail lagi tentang seperti apa sih bentuk dari Perjanjian Laut Hitam ini. Nah, namun satu hal yang penting untuk kita ketahui bersama para Tribuners, pada tanggal 17 Juni 2023 kemarin, Rusia baru saja mengumumkan penarikannya dari kesepakatan yang sangat penting untuk menstabilkan pasar makanan global dan sehari kemudian meluncurkan serangan ke pelabuhan Ukraina, di mana sebanyak 60.000 ton produk pertanian yang ditujukan untuk China dihancurkan oleh serangan rudal Rusia. Dan perlu untuk kita ketahui bersama para Tribuners, The Black Sea Grain Initiative atau Perjanjian Transportasi Biji-bijian Laut Hitam adalah persetujuan antara Rusia dan Ukraina yang dimediasi oleh PBB, di mana PBB dan Turki, di mana untuk mengurangi dampak krisis pangan global akibat perang antara kedua negara tersebut. Dan tentunya para Tribuners, perjanjian ini ditandatangani pada tanggal 22 Juli 2022 lalu dengan satu perjanjian antara Ukraina, Turki dan juga Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa, dan juga perjanjian terpisah dibuat antara Rusia, Turki dan juga Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa, dan ini memungkinkan ekspor makanan dan pupuk dari ketiga pelabuhan Ukraina yakni Chornomorsk, Odessa dan Pivdenie. And today it's such an honor that we can discuss with the Ukraine Embassy for Indonesia. Please welcome His Excellency Dr. Vasil Hamyanin. Good afternoon, and how are you, Dr. Vasil?
Ya, selamat siang saudara-saudari Tribuners yang saya hormati.
Oke, jadi untuk Tribuners yang mungkin belum mengetahui bahwa ini sudah sesi kedua kita bersama Dr. Vasil, di mana sebelumnya kita baru saja juga melakukan sesi berbincang dan membahas tentang seperti apa sih dinamika diplomasi antara Ukraina dan Indonesia selama dan setelah adanya invasi dari Rusia. But today we will talk more about 1 tahun Perjanjian Laut Hitam, Ancaman Keamanan Pangan Global Akibat Invasi Rusia. So Dr. Vasil, the first question that I will asking is about, could you please provide an overview of the Black Sea Grain Initiative and its significance for stabilizing the global food market to our lovely Tribuners?
Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm really, saya sangat terhormat hadiri program ini. Thank you very much for inviting me again. To put the long story brief, the Grain Initiative, I would like to pay attention to the fact that it started only because Russia attacked Ukraine and blocked all the deliveries of grains to the world market back in 2022, the February 2022. Before that, it was all normal, and we delivered our food and grains and everything else to the world markets. So only after Russia attacked Ukraine, the necessity of this grain initiative arose, because the world market of grains is pretty complicated and it's stable. So when the factor appears that destabilize the grain markets, the most vulnerable regions of the world start suffering. I'm talking about the African region, some African countries, some Asian countries, which require cheap and good quality grains, which we can satisfy. So basically, after the Russian aggression against Ukraine, full-scale aggression started, the grains prices jumped 10 to 20% on the global markets. And this means disaster and starvation for millions of people around the globe. That's why the necessity of this so-called grain initiative arose. Basically, it's the necessity to make a deal with an aggressor to release the Ukrainian grains to the markets,
Recording stopped.
release Ukrainian exports. Yeah, so basically, at that time, thanks to the efforts of Ukrainian government, plus the United Nations, plus the president of Turkey, we made an agreement with Turkey and the United Nations, and they made a separate agreement with Russia to release release Ukrainian exports of grains and some food products to the world. And this actually saved the lives of many people. Because, as I mentioned before, it's not that Ukraine supplies the majority of wheat or corn to the world markets. It is that when we do not supply it, the prices rise and the people start starving. It's very simple. So actually, the world markets are dependent on all these suppliers, of which Ukraine is one of the most important. So that's basically the reason for starting the Grain Initiative. And then the Russian Federation jeopardized this initiative again, and declared about they quit the initiative, and they will attack Ukrainian vessels carrying grains to the world markets. It's again the attempt of blackmailing the world community with grains. In my opinion, it's no less than next crime against humanity committed by the Russian regime.
Okay, in accordance with your previous explanation that agricultural products from Ukraine have cheaper prices with very good quality, then the Black Sea Grain Initiative had more positive effects, such as lower grain prices and increased wheat grain purchases by the United Nations World Food Program. So how do you assess the importance of this initiative in ensuring food security for millions of people worldwide, Dr. Vasil?
Right. Again, I will repeat that global grain market is very sensitive mechanism. So when in 1 year, for example, there is a bad crops, so we don't have enough grains for export, then it will influence the global market immediately, only because the proposition and demand are so different. So if we cannot satisfy the demand, the prices will go up. It's just a natural process on the markets. That's why we understand that the lack of exports of Ukrainian grains, namely corn and wheat, plus the vegetable oil like bunga matahari, minyak bunga matahari, plus sugar and anything else, will certainly influence the prices. And these prices would not be acceptable for countries like Somalia, like Djibouti, like Ethiopia, like Yemen, and other countries. At present, okay, we understand that the main importers of our grains used to be China, Egypt, Indonesia, Bangladesh, for example. And we understand that even for these countries, people will suffer because the prices will grow up. And it will not just be a prices for the wheat and grains and corn, it will be prices for food in general. And this will be very big challenge for the vulnerable categories of the population, like poor people, like students, like retired people, etc., who care about every dollar, right? Yeah. So at the same time, basically what we're talking about is kemanusiaan, is humanity, because despite the hard situation and the real dangerous the situation we experience now in Ukraine, we are under shelling and bombing every day, and Russia is still trying to destroy the infrastructure in Pelabuhan, Ukraine, and it has been destroying and damaging the ports, the silos, burning the corns in these Ukrainian ports. Despite all this, Ukraine still initiated this another program called Grain from Ukraine, targeted at saving the poorest countries of Africa and Asia by delivering Ukrainian grains. So quite recently, in the recent 1.5 years, Ukraine ensured that these countries are not suffering. And this was happening exactly before Russia declared its quit from the grains initiative, dooming many people for starvation. I repeat again, it's a crime against humanity. It's a war crime, again, war crime of fascist regime in Russian Federation. Unfortunately, we are witnessing this, and we have to find the methods and mechanism to resolve it, to make Ukrainian grains resume the deliveries of Ukrainian grains to the markets.
And as we all know that delays caused by Russian refusal to register and inspect ships under the initiative have resulted in reduced food shipments and increased costs for Ukrainian farmers. So can you please elaborate to us on the economic and humanitarian implications of these delays, Dr. Vasil?
Basically, if you're talking about Ukraine, that we must say that, Russian aggression has caused a lot of damages to Ukrainian economy. And of course, it caused a huge devastation to Ukrainian agriculture. You just think about the figures. Only the destruction of a river dam in Kakhovka, which happened recently, damaged 1.5 million hectares of land. 1.5 juta. It's huge territories, which will require up to 10 years of restoration before it can be used by farmers again. Can you imagine this? This means that even releasing the Ukrainian grains now, grains to the market, we will not come back to the volumes we used to have before the Russian aggression. This means that Ukrainian agriculture is damaged, and this will cause the inevitable problems in the economies and in the societies of many countries, especially, I repeat, the most vulnerable countries, like the poorest countries of Asia and Africa. This will even can end up with the social unrests and protests and whatever you can imagine. When people don't have enough food to eat, and they don't physically have the access to this food, it will be a big problems. And I read a few articles recently in Indonesian media too. So the Indonesian analysts and experts also speak about that even in Indonesia, relatively prosperous country compared to like poor countries in Africa, even in Indonesia, the prices will grow substantially, and it will be like a hidden starvation. So people will be forced to switch into eating something else, to replace wheat and corn or something with something else, less healthy but cheaper. So this is a hidden problem. It's not on the surface now, but I know for sure that if the blockade of Ukrainian grains from the seaports will continue, and if Russia will continue to destroy the Ukrainian grains in the fields, in the silos, in the storages, and in the ports, this will eventually cause long-term food crisis in the global scale. And we have to be aware of it. It's not something that you can resolve within days. I'm afraid that the crisis caused by Russian invasion into Ukraine, the food crisis that now is happening and developing, will be deteriorating. And unfortunately, it will not come to normal in long term, because we'll have to recover our crops, we'll have to recover our agricultural production, and this may take years. So I want to the tribuners, I want to the people of the globe, or the humankind, to be aware of the huge and terrible crimes committed by Russia now. And these crimes are committed against you, my dear friends, not just against Ukraine, against every citizen of Indonesia, against every citizen of Africa, of Asia, and other countries. Be aware of this. Open your eyes, open your ears, and try to understand.
Okay, Dr. Vasil. And also, despite the challenges that faced by the Ukrainian agricultural sector due to the ongoing conflict, Ukrainian farmers continue to supply wheat, sunflower, and corn to people worldwide. So, how is Ukraine coping with the difficulties and ensuring the resilience of its agricultural industry on this time?
It's a very difficult question. It's not easy to answer it because now Ukrainian farmers are in very bad situation. First one, the physical danger, because while the farmers are gathering crops on the field, they are being under attack from Russian artillery, from cannons, from bombs. This is very dangerous, from fires after all. So our farmers are working in a very dangerous situation. Second one, don't forget that I think 1/6, like over 20%, over 15% of Ukrainian land is contaminated by the land mines. And the land mines is a danger that is hidden under the ground, and it will definitely prevent from normal agricultural processes on the territory of Ukraine. So farmers are working in very dangerous and very challenging conditions. Second thing is, gather the crops, then we have to store it somewhere. Storages are damaged. Then we have to deliver it somewhere to the ports, and the logistic chains is damaged. Now, then they have to put it on the grain ships, onto the ships, and then deliver it. And then this route is under threat from Russian military aggressors. So the challenge is there. And how do we manage to resolve the situation? First is a part of Ukrainian grains is being exported through the European ports. But it's a very small part because there are not enough capabilities of logistics that can do it. What else? I think that the only way we can resolve this issue is to force Russian Federation for giving up the attempts of destruction. And we, the Ukrainians plus the people of goodwill, United Nations, people of Turkish government, and people of the globe who need it, African, European, Asian, they have to stand up and say no to Russian blackmailing, and to ensure that Ukrainian grains is being delivered safely to the world markets. These are challenging things, but I think on our own, Ukraine will not be able to ensure the security of Ukrainian grains. Only with the assistance of the people from the world that we can make Russia follow the rules of humanity and ensure that grains goes to its consumers.
Okay, on this very dangerous situation, and with the Black Sea Grain Initiative currently halted due to Russia's withdrawal, what is the alternative plans does Ukraine have in place to ensure the safe and timely export of agricultural products to countries that need the product? Dr. Vasil.
There are a few alternatives. It's my vision of how it could happen. First is to force Russia to come back into the grain initiative. But unfortunately, we see that Russian purpose is not to negotiate, but Russian purpose is to destroy Ukrainian ports and destroy Ukrainian grains. This is obviously a methods used by the fascists. It's not something that can be used by the civilized nation. Second, if they don't agree to go back to the grain initiatives, The other alternative is to ensure that Ukrainian vessels carrying grains are protected by the military ships from the neighboring countries, from the NATO countries, from including the Turkey, or from the other countries that the countries of the goodwill that are willing to save the African and Asian countries from starvation. So it's escorts of military ships ensuring that Ukrainian vessels are not damaged. And the third is to stop the Russian aggression, basically to destroy the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Unfortunately, Ukraine does not have the ability to do this so far, because if we destroy the Black Sea Fleet, the aggressive ships that commit the bombardments of Ukrainian cities and kill civilians every day, this will not possibly stop the threats and the intimidation by Russian regime of the humankind with starvation. So there are three ways, and I would go for the second or third one, but it will certainly depend on our partners in the United Nations, and it will definitely depend. I rely strongly on the position of countries like India, China, and Indonesia, of course, because these countries are the big players of the world. These are big influencers in the world, and these are countries that really suffer from the blockade of Ukrainian grains. So yeah, I will hope for the sensibility of the world community. This is the only way we can resolve the problem.
Okay, the article already mentions that Russia's food blackmail is aimed at lifting restriction of the country after its full-scale war against the Ukraine. So can you please provide more insight into specific demands Russia has made to resolve this situation?
You see, Russian Federation is not the state with which you can negotiate based upon logics or based upon the sense, any sensibility, because the aim of Russian Federation is to destroy Ukraine, to destroy the Ukrainian people, destroy Ukrainian infrastructure, and destroy Ukrainian economy. So it's not there are no methods or ways one can really negotiate with Russians. Unfortunately, well, they are our neighbors, so we have to deal with it somehow. But as far as I'm concerned, many countries of the world have been trying to persuade Russia to stop blackmailing of the world. And I don't think they have any arguments, and I don't think they have any demands, real demands, towards the humankind. They say they want to lift some sanctions. They want to release some products from Russia, etc., etc. But please do not forget the main thing. Russia attacked Ukraine, a sovereign state. It occupied part of Ukrainian territory. It committed numerous crimes against humanity. Russian soldiers killed, murdered, tortured, and raped hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of Ukrainian people. Now, the best way to stop the food crisis, as well as other crises caused by this war, is to stop the war. And actually, how can we stop the war? We should force Russian Federation to stop the war. It's the only way we have. If otherwise, unfortunately, my forecast, my predictions are not very optimistic, because if the war lasts for next months, for next years, it's not only Ukraine that will be suffering. Many countries in the world will be suffering, and it's not just about grains. It's about the generally food prices, it's fuel prices, it's logistics prices, and it's the crisis of diplomacy caused by Russian attacks. So Russian demands, as always, are not, they don't fit the reality. Russians live in the world which is far from reality, and I really want my dear respected tribuners to understand that. Russians are creating mythology, and they live in the not realistic world. Unfortunately, we are dealing with the terrorist state, with the new Hitler, and worse than Hitler. So how do we deal with Hitler? We remember from the Second World War. So the only way out of this situation is this.
Okay, so it's also the article emphasized about the importance of a common and strong stance from the international community to address Russia weaponization on food. So what steps is Ukraine taking to garner support from the global community to counter this threat to food security?
You see, we're trying, that's what we are doing now, actually. We're trying to tell the truth. We're trying to describe the true situation to the world community, to the people in many countries. We are doing this everywhere, in Africa, in Asia. We are trying to show, I mean, recently we had this African-Russian forum in St. Petersburg. I mean, we try to deliver the information to the African countries. People look at this. You are visiting and talking to the country that blackmails you and that will deprive you of your food. It's amazing. So I think that our task is to deliver the truth to the world audience. We're trying to explain to Indonesian people, we're trying to explain to African people, to Chinese people that the sufferings, the rise of prices for everything, the complicated international situation in the coming months has no other roots but Russian aggression and Russian terrorist foreign policy. Only this. So how can we're just providing facts, and we're providing the reality. We are describing the reality to the people worldwide. Please look at this from the realistic point of view. And if someone doesn't understand, just imagine this happens to your country. Now, after that, people will really understand what we feel now. And we are talking not only on behalf of Ukraine, we are talking on behalf of all the people of goodwill who still remember what is it to be attacked by other country, and who remember what is it to fight against the imperialism, to fight against the colonialism. I think that Indonesians still are very sensitive about that. Please recollect this, remember this. And when we are together, we are very strong. We can stand up and say no to any aggressor, including Russian Federation. Stand up and say no to fascism. Stand up and say no to blackmailing, to weaponizing the food, and to the aggression. It's another type of aggression, food aggression, food terror. And we are strong enough, the world community must be strong enough and brave enough to stand up and say no to this terror.
Okay, we already talked and also discussed a lot about how dangerous it is and how it affected not only for Ukraine but also for all around the world. So lastly, maybe you can explain to us that what messages that does the Ukraine embassy have for the international community and stakeholders in ensuring the continuity and success of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, or any potential alternative initiative for food experts from Ukraine? Dr. Fazil.
I think I made a few messages already, but I will repeat this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the short and middle perspective, we do not have alternatives to Ukrainian grains. We do not have alternatives because Ukraine produces up to 100 million tons of food annually, and the absolute majority of this goes to the international markets. And Ukrainian food, I repeat, belongs to the cheap and high quality food. That's why it is so popular, welcome in many countries. That's why it serves as the stabilizing factor for the food prices, for the grain prices. So my message to the world is: first, be sensible, be critical in thinking. Second, be brave. Do not be afraid of Russian blackmailing. Be courageous and not be afraid of Russia. Nobody's afraid of Russia anymore. Those times has passed that we say that Russia is a strong country with a strong, and they can take revenge to the countries that didn't stay together with Russia. No, Russia is weak, and Russia is it's a fascist regime. That you must understand that. And third, we must understand that Russian regime, today's Russian regime, is not capable of negotiations. They don't need negotiations. They don't want negotiations. They don't want peace talks. Just remember how many times, ask your governments, ask the government of China, ask the government of Indonesia, ask the governments of India, ask the government of African countries and other countries, how many times they talk to Russia, how many times they try to persuade Russia to stop the war, to release the grains, to stop blackmailing people with this, to stop aggression and stop committing crimes against humanity. Ask them, and you will get the answer many times, non-stop. It's hundreds of times. So it proves only one thing: we cannot talk to Russia anymore. We can only stand up and impose pressure, impose sanctions on Russia. This is the way how we do it. And we, Ukraine, will go on fighting for our independence. And our slogan, Merdeka atau mati, still stays. We will fight till the victory. And after we defeat Russian regime, the agricultural products will come back to normal eventually. But remember, not immediately. So the sooner we together defeat this Russian regime, the sooner we end the war, the sooner we'll get back the stability of world economy, the stability of global food supplies, the stability of global logistics, and the stability of global finance. The sooner the better. Together we are stronger. Together we can do extraordinary things.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Vasil, and also we all that have same hope that Russia can stop the food blackmailing and also make back the food security, bring for the food security for millions of people worldwide, and also coming back and do the Black Sea Grain Initiative again, and also run by the rule that is already exists. And thank you so much for Dr. Vasil for your change to talk with us and tell the Tribuners about how is the food blackmailing is affected not for only Ukraine but also for Indonesia and also all around the world. And thank you so much, Dr. Vasil. Dan juga tentunya terima kasih untuk para Tribuners.
I'm honored. Thank you for thank you for this. Thank you for this. We are ready to talk about anything, but we're not ready to talk about our giving up our sovereignty and our independence. Merdeka atau mati.
Merdeka atau mati. Thank you so much for all the Tribuners that already watched the Tribun VIP on this edition. And I'm Anissa Husnuzan, sign out. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and goodbye. Thank you so much, Dr. Vasil.
Thank you so much. It was great. So now I can go back home because I'm